Law of success, the habit of doing more than paid for. My friends, Napoleon Hill shares an incredible experience that he had that I absolutely believes is a driving force, not just in his life and his story, but will be to you. He shares that he was invited to go to Canton, Ohio to give a speech on this course, The Law of Success. And he says, fate would have it that there were two other business meetings that night, and then my event, instead of being sold out like I was used to or hoped would be, there were only 13 people there. But he said, I'd always believed that you give it your best, whether there's one or 1,000. So he says, I went at my subject on this law of success like the room was packed. And he says, but I was let down. I was frustrated. He says, I felt the pressure of the evening. And he says, but I gave it everything I had. And then I slipped out the back door because I didn't want to talk to any of the 13. And he says, the next day, he says, at my hotel was a message from the editor of the local newspaper, the publisher. His name was Don Armella, and he asked me to come and visit with him. And he said, I thought to myself, since he's asking me to visit with him, I'm going to let him do most of the talking. But instead, he asked me, he says, will you tell me your story? Don't leave anything out. He said, I want the good, I want the bad. I don't want just the roses. I want you to tell me everything. And so he said, I found myself bearing my complete soul to this gentleman. And he says, and what happened changed my life. My friends, he said, he asked me at the end, he said, I want to ask you one last question. And he said, I want you to answer it the same way that you shared everything with me. Have you made any money from this philosophy yet? And he said, I looked up at him and I said, no, I have not. And he said, I began to explain why to him. And he said, then he told me, he says, I knew that you hadn't, and I knew why that you hadn't. He says that the accumulation of knowledge often comes at the expense of making money. It's interesting because that's what Carnegie said in the beginning of his life, or the end of his life, about the beginning of his life. And he said, I am going to quit my job and I'm going to manage your affairs, and you and I are going to go into partnership. That partnership eventually led, well, you'll have to get into our YouTube channel to hear the full story, but my friends, it is fascinating. It changed Napoleon Hill's life, it changed Don Armella's life, it changed the United States Steel Corporation's life, it changed your life and mine if you will be a part of this Law of Success course. My friends, these principles are real. They will change your life, but you must get in the habit of doing more than paid for, mostly in the beginning before the money comes in. But my friends, it will change your life.